Hello again from Whitby, and welcome to my video regarding it's an introduction into the technique of glazing. Now, I remember when I first discovered glazing, and it was literally an earth-shattering moment. It's a whole new dynamic of painting. It was incredible. It really was. It transformed my work and really propelled me to the next level. Uh, it really can be, like a massive change in your approach to what you do with a paintbrush. It really can be very exciting. Now, before we move on, I'm just going to give you a quick introduction into the various mediums that I use, and they're available from all decent art shops. So let's begin with Michael Harding. Now, Michael Harding, if you're not familiar, is a brand of art materials that's definitely high end. It's like aimed at the professional or passionate amateur. It really is. They're absolutely brilliant products, but with a brilliant price tag. You know what I mean? And there's certainly not a compromise when it comes to the art material side of things. Now, this is the standard glaze medium. It's Dammar glaze medium, and it's quite watery compared to the other ones on the market. It's one of my favorites though, and I use it quite often, depending on what I'm doing. Sometimes, a glaze, you need to have a more watery base, and sometimes a bit more of a jelly consistency, which leads me on nicely to Winsor & Newton's Liquin light gel. Now, if you can just see the consistency, it really is. In fact, I'll pour some out so you can get a really good idea of what we're dealing with. See there, and there, out it comes. Reminds me of that slime stuff that you used to get as a kid, which I still do play with because I've got 6 children, and it's just an excuse, really. Now, what I tend to do with this stuff, there's lots of little pots and stuff you can buy, isn't there, that you can attach to your palette. What I just do is pour it into the lid. And it's a little bit thicker than water, but it's certainly not on the anything like that's at the light gel from Winsor & Newton. However, it's a brilliant glazing medium. And then, in fact, no, before we go on to Liquin, I just want to touch on beeswax paste again from Michael Harding range. Now, this stuff, I've got a secret, I call it my secret recipe. And basically, it's wonderful stuff. Absolutely glorious. And it smells divine. It smells like a lemony sort of, like a lemony cross between lemon and hairspray. Everything in the middle. Yeah, and everything in between. It's, Christ. It's quite wonderful. Now, excuse my fingers. Right, now. And it is a bleached beeswax. Now, it's absolutely divine to work with. And what you tend to do, get rid of that. Now, this stuff, basically, you use your palette knife. Okay, you move it about on your palette and it'll collapse. It'll collapse into its liquid form. I've got my own methods, where I use it, especially because I'm heavily influenced by Turner, my God. And I use it to a great extent with depicting light when I'm doing one of my skies and the rays of light. I know it sounds crazy, but what I do is I get a good amount of it, I spit into it and froth it up, and obviously the saliva and the oils within the beeswax react and fight against each other, and they create like a honeycomb consistency, like bubbles. And then I add a tiny amount of pigment, and hey presto, you have a crazy beeswax based, I would say glaze, but it's not really glaze. It's more of a painted medium from that. But you know, it's a good insight to include it in this video. Okay, now the baseline, the all famous Liquin, Winsor and Newton. This is the product which probably, when you say you're glazing, the majority of people will glaze with. It's reasonably priced and it does the job. It's very reliable. You can always rely on it to get a decent standard of result, and it never lets you down. And what more can you ask from a glaze? Now, or glazing medium, should I say? Now, actually, sometimes, ironically, it's a bit thicker than the gel, but then it soon collapses, as all these do, because they're all oil-based, and it will collapse within itself once you break it down and mash it about with a palette knife, you know. And it's a absolutely wonderful medium to work with. It really is, and you get great results every time. Now, there's different circumstances when you're painting that you could make use of all of these. However, if I'm really honest, you know, you could have just one. You don't need to go spending obscene amounts of money on micro-hardening products. Not to take anything away from micro-hardening products, but you know, Liquin 9.9% of the times will deliver a decent result. You know, I use micro-hardening products because, well, I just you know, I'm a bit OCD with my results, and you know, I just I don't compromise with my work, and I give everything. And if there's just a tiny element of a belief that I can get a bit better result, then I have no problem spending that amount of money. It's all up to you. It's just, it depends what you're trying to get from your work, you know. Okay, now what is glazing? Glazing. Okay, for example, this painting here. Okay, I'm halfway through it. Well, maybe a quarter way through it, but I've definitely made a start. Now, there's one rule with glazing, and that is you do not glaze over a wet surface, i.e., the paint here must be at least touch dry. I, on occasions, have, because of you know, time constraints, and you know, I've needed to have a painting finished by a certain time for a client or whatever, I've had to really push it. And there have been times when you get a great glaze, and then you're pulling your glaze across the surface, and it catches. 9 times out of 10 it's white, which is the insanely opaque color, because opaque and glaze and your glaze, that's like everything a glaze isn't, because it's actually a glaze is basically a translucent layer of color. Okay, and it installs and creates the most divine effect. It really does. And this is where I come back to, you know, it changed my whole approach on painting, because I stumbled upon it. Nobody taught me about glazing. I didn't know what it was. And a lot of people assume a glaze is something to do with varnishing. I suppose the name, I get it. And I thought that as well, until I stumbled across it, and it changed. Well, it seems to me to sound dramatic, but it really did change my life within my painting. Okay, okay. So we have this work here. Now, a lot of the times, you know, white is obviously the most effective and the most obvious, where you can see the difference in what a glaze can do. Now, I tend to sometimes I use a palette knife to glaze with, but again, that's in specific situations. Now, in here, I've got a selection of brushes that I will glaze with. They tend to be quite soft, because what you don't want to do a lot of times with painting, as I'm sure you guys know, if you're an oil color artist, there's several levels of dry. There's not just dry and not dry. There's a billion of gradients in which that's dry. So rarely will your oil paint layer be 100% dry, because obviously you're in the middle of a painting, and a lot of the times, you know, you're desperately waiting for it to dry. Hence, which I'll go on later in the video and explain why sometimes it can be advantageous to use acrylics within your piece of work. Because purely and simply because it's dry instantly and you can glaze straight over it. There's no rules here, you know. Well, there are rules, and well, rules are there to be broken, aren't they? I know I'll probably get annihilated in the comments of saying that, but because you're taught at university and different colleges, you know, it's a big no-no. However, on occasions I do it, and I will add an area of acrylics within my work, and it'll often be where there's a big expanse of a light source, and I want to glaze over it quickly, and I'll slam over a layer of acrylic white, and purely and simply so I can glaze over it pretty much instantly. Okay, so brushes, yeah, it's literally what you're comfortable with. That's what I think in this situation. You know, there's no, don't constrain yourself. Don't think I have to use that because of that. Simply go with what you feel comfortable with. Think about what you're trying to achieve. You know, it's softness. That's the key here. You don't want to ignite and irritate any layer of color that you're working over. So if you can see here, you know, there's thick lumps of titanium white oil color. Okay. Now we've got a skin on there. Now, the minute you break that skin, it's not good, because then what will happen is the glaze will get polluted with the insanely opaque layer of white color, and that's it, game over, and it won't work. Now, what I might do, just so you guys understand what the consequences are of that, I might deliberately do that in a minute and try and find a big lump of white paint that's asking for it, and we'll do it, and we'll have a bit of fun whilst we're doing it. Okay, so I'm going to choose my brush. I think this bad boy here feels a bit suitable, or maybe actually Terry Harrison soft brush, maybe. And often a good idea, guys, is to test it before you glaze. So get your brush and gently rub it over. Yeah, have a check. Is there any white color there? If not, you're game on, aren't you? Right? Simply go over it and have a feel. Yeah. And see if there's any kind of color is going to come off. Let it come off now, so you're not messing about making a glaze and destroying your glaze. Okay, and yeah, it looks like we're good to go, aren't we? Yeah, I think we'll be all right. Okay, so let's move forward with this section. Okay, now colors, paint. Oh my god, OMG, it's insane. What a the options out there are endless, aren't they? Now, what you need to do, you need to really give it a great deal of thought about what color you're going to be glazing with. Now, I have a few secret weapons with colors. Now, at the moment, I'm having a bit of thing with Michael Harding. He's my buddy, and he produces some great color. Now, hey, a transparent oxide red. Yeah. Now, it doesn't have to be a transparent color. You can use, well, what can you say? So, for example, a burnt sienna, a nice burnt sienna. Yeah. You could say, well, that's inherently translucent anyway. And it is, you know, so you need to it's trial and error. I'm not going to sit here and reel off all the colors that are potential candidates for making a nice glaze. However, what I will do is put a list on. You can probably see it shortly now on the video. And they're the clear favorites of mine, what you just seen there. And, you know, please don't think for a second that they're the only colors that you glaze with. They're just my personal favorites, which lend themselves very well to my style of work. Okay, guys? Now, the first color I'm going to use is transparent oxide red. Now, I love this color. It's just gorgeous. I mean, look at it. It's an OMG and it's straight there. So there you go. There's a lovely example of that color. Now, for in the shadows, okay, we're going to go with a transparent oxide brown. Now, this, again, is a beautiful color. I love these colors. You know, I really am, I constrain myself with the different colors I glaze with. And I'll just give that a quick streak. I mean, oh, it's just gorgeous. I mean, it's just gorgeous, isn't it? I mean, it's just too much to look at. You know, it's just off the scale with beauty. Now, finally, what I'm going to do is I've got this little fella, transparent oxide yellow. Now, this is, if ever you've had an Indian curry and you've eaten your dinner and you see at the bottom of the plate, and it's that turmeric, isn't it, which leaves that gorgeous stainy yellow. Well, I call this paint turmeric to my colleagues for a very obvious reason. I mean, come on, really. I mean, that is just like, you know, it's a stainy, I'm not going to say inky, but certainly a stainy yellow. And it's just gorgeous. There's nothing wrong with mixing these colors up either, depending on what you're trying to, what effect you're going for. But for now, just to keep it nice and simple, and this is a really basic introduction to glazing, because the technique is a, well, it's definitely not a beginner's technique. It's, you know, you need a good knowledge of color. You need a good understanding of color and how it behaves in relation to the color which you're glazing against. So you could say, well, aren't I glazing against the white? Well, no, you're not. You're glazing against that primary, aren't you, which I've created, because this is a tonal painting, isn't it? It's, you know, pure, like there's one color there, yeah, which I've made up of many colors, but still I've made it into one color on my palette. Okay, then it's just variations of tone. That's all it is, and it's very effective. Anyway, because we haven't got much time, let's go for it. So what I'll do is I'll use a Liquin to begin with. Right, now slam it there. Now here's the key, guys. What we're going to do, we're going to use a tiny amount. That's it. And if anything, that's too much, but it'll be quite a rich glaze. There's no wrong or right amount of pigment that you put into your glaze. It depends on what you're trying to do. You could have a very, very watery glaze, so it's just a really delicate layer of color over the top, right? But it depends what you're trying to achieve. Now, this is where you have to experiment, and experiment, because you're not going to do it any other way, guys. You need to slam it. You need to really push, right, to find out and get everything, what, you know, to get everything you're trying to, you know, trying to achieve from glazing, because I promise you, you will not be disappointed. It is an amazing technique. It changed my painting, hands down. It really did. And I think personally, I'm not going to talk about external success. I'm going to talk about success for me personally. It made me believe that I can maybe, you know, try and see how I put my work out into the world. And it was glazing, believe it or not, which gave me the key. It gave me the kick up the rear to go out there to the world and present my work to everyone and see what they thought. You know, it gave me the confidence because I was so astounded, and it installed something of, they say, self-belief in my ability. And yeah, you know, it was just amazing. So guys, do it, you know, because you will not be disappointed. Okay, now, so we've already checked our layer of color that we're painting over. Right, now be ready to be astounded. No, now what we do is, so I'm using the transparent brown oxide, which is the darker of the glazes. Yeah, so we've got the transparent brown oxides, we've got transparent red oxide, and then we've got the yellow. So essentially, within glaze terms, that's dark, medium, light. Okay, so transparent brown oxide, surprise, surprise, being the darker of the color, yeah, of the glazes is going to go in a shadowed area. Now, I mean, you know, it's just beautiful, beautiful. Now, if you feel like this is doing now, right, it's getting a bit, there's a bit of friction there. It's not flying over, right? Now, what you do, you just add a bit more, oh, sugar, that's the wrong medium, right? You just add a little bit more of your medium. Okay, guys. Yeah, a little bit more, so there's a bit more fluid there, so it'll glide over a lot easier. Yeah. Now, you're not painting this. This isn't painting. Of course, it's painting, but it's not painting. It's a technique. You don't do a constant layer over your surface. What you do is it's sporadic, right? Because nature doesn't work that way. It doesn't color in, does it? It's not painting by numbers, is it? Nature, yeah, there's variations, constant variations in everything you do. And that's what you got to do consequently when you're painting, okay? So we're going to add a bit there. We're going to put a bit in here. Now, don't worry about any excess or anything like that because I'll show you shortly what we're going to do with that, okay? Now just gently across, yeah? Again, don't worry about filling bits in or missing bits because, oh no, that's part of the fun at the end. Now you do it section by section. You don't do big areas. Yeah, you don't do big areas of the picture because what you do, once you're a small area like that, you take it off, right? Now, I'm not going to give you like, oh, we take off 50%, we take off 10%, we take off 90%. It depends on what you're painting. It depends on the situation. Yeah? On this situation, for example, right? And you do it lightly because don't forget, you don't want to irritate the layer of color, of oil color underneath with that layer of skin because if that skin's broken, it's game over. Okay, guys? So, yeah, gently just pull off the excess, right? We're only leaving a residue. I suppose that's the right word. Maybe it's not. Don't bite my head off in the comments if it isn't. Okay? Yeah, but we are essentially just pulling off, yeah, the excess, yeah, and leaving the magic. Now, you can see the area already, and it's a stunning result every time. Glazing can change an artist overnight. Babes. I'm so okay. So I mean, it's going on lovely, absolutely lovely. Now, always have in the back of your mind about catching and ripping the skin of the layer underneath because that is absolutely a disaster. And it'll just destroy it in a heartbeat. It won't destroy the painting, and there's recovery is easily attained, but well, it's easier just to avoid it in the first place, isn't it? Now, I'm going to change the thickness. I'm going to try and I'm going to try. Well, try. I will. I'm going to add a bit more color right into the glaze now to make it a richer glaze. Okay. So you guys can see the difference, and well, let's have a look because it'll speak for itself. Let's get a nice amount on there. Okay, now nice and dark. Okay, on it goes. Looking well. It's going to be a nice. It's going to be a good result. Put it that way. Okay, and you know, you just have to. Oh God, you just have to learn to you know, find your zone with it. You know, it behaves in quite a different way to, you know, how you would paint. You just have to, as I said before, experiment with it, but you really do because it is tricky. It's not the easiest of techniques, but why would it be? Because the results are so good, so it's going to be quite tricky, isn't it? You know, and again, it's the taking off element, which is what I enjoy the most. But again, that comes with experience on how much you take off. I mean, there's times when I've done a glaze and I've taken off nearly all of it because I made that mistake. But I learned for next time, you know, and it's just like, it really is just experience when it comes down to it, and you know, it takes a long time to master the technique, but the results are just absolutely astounding. And like I said, you know, it really is just trial and error. And don't get disheartened when you know you do catch that underpainting skin and tear the skin, and before you know it, you got that you got a lovely opaque white, titanium white glaze, which is obviously a complete disaster. Now, as you can see there, this is a darker tone, and we're going over that lovely white. And because of the shape of the bow, you know, I'm wanting a nice bar of white, a nice you know, nice light. Well, with the light source where it is, it's going to dictate that the light is based on this side of the ship, with a nice shadow area here. So, you know, I'm using the glaze to enhance the shadow, but also when it enhances the shadow, it will increase the contrast for where the light is. So it really is a new dimension, isn't it? It's a whole new thinking of painting. And before you know it, you'll be finding yourself painting within painting and planning the glaze, because you have to, you know, it's all like you've got to preempt what it's going to look like. So you're painting, it really is a new way to paint. You know, you do your painting, so it's basically prepped for glazing. You know, and the effects, you know, it's really changing gear. It really is. Not all professionals, you know, are interested in glazing, and they just rather try and get the same effect or similar effect with conventional methods. And between you and me, they fail. They never do. I'll say fail. Fail's a hard word, but they don't attain the results. I don't know how they can do. Now, if you zoom in there, and you'll really see that effect here, where the white paint, and it's got a decent skin on it, and basically you put it on, you put the glaze on. In fact, I'll do it again just so we can just reiterate. So look, the glaze goes on, right? And then more often, like you use your finger now. So the glaze is on, you go straight off, and the glaze sits in all the holes and the cavities. And here's another top tip: you glaze or you wipe with one direction, because if you think about it, then the glaze will sit in the cavities and the cracks on one side of that crack, if that makes sense. Yeah. And it will catch and sit in there, because when I'm running my finger over it, it won't pull it out. However, if you were to go back on the reverse, which I actually just did annoyingly, yeah, but if you were to do that, you clean up and take away that glaze out of that cavity, and you lose the amazing effect. And you know, it would be a wasted opportunity, because yeah, I mean, Christ, it is absolutely divine, this effect. I love it. Absolutely love it. Just want to use, you know, so using your finger is, you know, in certain scenarios works a treat, very effective. But obviously in other scenarios, you know, you need to use the wet wipe, or an old tea towel or paper towel. You know, it's whatever you find works for you. It depends on how thick your glaze is, the color you're using. There's a multitude of variables, isn't there? Okay, guys. So I've been quite gentle there, you know, but only because I want to leave room for the other colors. So now we're going to go in with what I refer to as my mid. I just make names. Now what I'm going to do, just to step it up a bit, is I'm going to add a little bit of red, transparent red oxide, in with the transparent brown oxide. Okay, because it's just enhancing the glaze, and the effects will just be truly awesome, because they always are glazing, unless you muck it up, and then it's truly terrible. Okay, so Now, because obviously my brush is loaded up with purely brown oxide, let's get that out of it. So then we have a good mix. Now, the oxides are a good range of paints or colors, should I say. They're not a complete range of paints in their own right, but well, to be honest, if they were, I'd buy them all because they're tremendous colors to glaze with. You know, I think they're specifically, I'm not sure if they're specifically designed for glazing, but I'll be shocked if it turns out they weren't. Okay, so moving down here now. Now, this is with a little bit more red. Now, the technique I'm using now is I'm going in at an angle. So the angle I painted it at was that way. I'm going in specifically that way. And why would you think that is? Well, it's to catch in the different cavities and crevices, because that's what you're essentially doing and wanting to do. Because that's what you know, like I've already explained, you know, it's about slamming it on, pulling it off, and leaving a nice red, what I call, well, refer to as a residue. I can't think of a better word, really. Now, just see with a finger. I mean, oh, that's gorgeous. Now, I mean, that's just instant, isn't it? I think that's why I enjoy glazing so much, because it's an instant result. It's just wonderful, wonderful effect. Now, it's about partnering your colors as well. Okay, guys. So you got, well, a loose green, haven't you? It's a greeny blue, this here, turquoisey. I think it's magnesium blue with, I think, yellow ochre, however you pronounce it, and a bit of phthalo turquoise, and darkened with Payne's grey. And that's what I call, I mix those colors up, use them as a primary, and then use variables dark and white, you know, to use the variables of that to create all your different tones. And this is what this is all about, tonal values, isn't it? So you better be good with your tonal values. But actually, must reiterate, it doesn't have to be this type of painting. It can be a conventional oil painting, you know, with a multitude of different colors. Glazing is for everything. You can do it in every scenario. You know, I mean, that's just an instant result, isn't it, guys? Now, so we hit on that yellow there. You will use lots of wet wipes or paper towels, whichever you're using, to take that excess off. Yeah. Now, oh my, that's just wonderful. What a result that is, eh? What a result. Now, you'll notice that I'm going both ways. Well, it depends on the scenario, as I explained earlier. It doesn't always require left, left, left. Sometimes, you know, left, right is also necessary, depending on the situation. There's no hard and fast rules here, is there? As you probably worked out. There's advice, hence this video. You know, you've got to learn it for yourselves, guys. You know, you've got to get out there and experiment. Now, that is what I refer to as an OMG point. It's OMG because it's an absolute gem. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm hoping we can zoom in on that bad boy. And, you know, really, really, I'm going to ram some more in there at an angle, right? Because I'm thinking about cavities, about crevices, whatever word you want to use, for those holes and nooks and crannies of how the paint's dried and left these lovely holes, okay? And then maybe it's like a stainy. So I told you about how that's a really stainy colour. And look at it, it's having great fun, isn't it? The colour itself. Oh dear, I'm getting a bit excited from my easel around. Right, and again, just nice and gentle, because I don't want to lose too much of that wonder. But, you know, there we go. Oh, yeah, it's delightful. Absolutely delightful. I could look at that all day. Okay, now, you know, I'm hitting on spots here. I really need to balance it out. But what I'm doing is I'm just trying to show you in isolated areas different scenarios and different moments. So if I just give it a quick going over throughout. But remember, guys, what I said, you know, you're not painting here. Well, you're painting, but, you know, you're not painting. You're applying a glaze, okay? And don't be afraid to shake it up a bit, add more medium when a scenario dictates it, when you don't want a heavy layer, you know? And so, you know, and I'm leaving areas here which I just don't want because I really want to screen light. So why would I pollute that with a glaze? You know, you just got to play it by ear. You got to read your painting. That's the key here. Reading what the scenario and the situation dictates and making the most out of it. So I'm going now back to the left technique, okay? And I'm shaping the boat because as well, you know, it's the way, you know, the nature intended, isn't it? How the light falls and then you've got to shape the boat with it, you know? It is a residue. That's all it is at the moment. It's a delicate process, okay? And it's a layered process as well because you put one glaze on, or I do it as a layered process. You might find a technique that works differently for you. But, you know, because what I want to do, I don't want to overdo it. So I do thin layers and then layer and layer and layer. But it's not conventional layers in drying in between. It's the layers in layering it up, thickening it up, and building up the that residue and getting the effect that you want, that you know this painting can deliver. Do not sell yourself short. Demand a decent result, and you'll get it. If you give in and you just accept, you know, that it's average, that'll do. Well, that'll do doesn't exist in my world. It really doesn't. Okay. Getting it all into those little nooks, right? Because the results, I mean, again, zoom in there, and it's just like off the scale, isn't it? So a result and a half. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. Now, we probably shouldn't. No, I don't care anyway, because I've got to show you the beauty and amazing quality of our last little fella, which is transparent oxide yellow. Yeah, turmeric. Okay, now let's attack that bad boy there, right? Sat there, quite happy. Well, I'm not happy. Let's smash it. Now you see, guys. Oh, that's beautiful, isn't it? Do you know what? It's so beautiful that I'm going to add a little bit up here. Yeah, don't worry about, you know, mixing them up as well. Even often than not, you know, guys, you know, I'll mix paint when I'm painting, like actually on the painting, within the painting. You know, it's, you know, you don't follow rules, for God's sake, you know, break the boundaries, you know, push it out. And magic will happen, won't it? Okay, and now take off time around here, especially with the highlight, you know. You know, I'm going to go gentle. I'm going to go left, left. Right, one directional pull off, and we'll be in good fight. We'll be in good shape. I mean, that's wonderful. Love it. Love it. Okay, now you see these nooks you see, guys, here. This is what we want, isn't it? And it's quite delightful. Okay. Now, bear in mind as well, with these mediums, they dry fast. It's not oil color. They're not going to dry and, you know, the days on end. It's not about there. Overnight, they'll be dry. Hours, they'll be semi-dry. Okay. And consequently, minutes, they'll be dry enough to hold that glaze in place. So when I put my next layer on, we're not going to lose it all. Okay. Okay, so one last glaze. Here, nice dollop of transparent red oxide, nice dollop of transparent brown oxide. Now, you know, I have to keep these videos short, this video short, should I say. I'll say short, you know, I mean, I could talk for days on end about glazing and all the wonderful variables there are. But this is just a quick insight, you know. I've introduced you to the very basic and minimum amount of mediums there to be used. I've introduced you to a very basic and minimum favorite colors of mine, you know. But there's a multitude of different variables in every sense, you know, to be exploited and to be used. But this is just a very, very basic insight and introduction to the magic of glazing and how can it transform your painting. So if you remember, I gave you 3 options, didn't I? I gave you the Liquin, standard Liquin. I gave you the Liquin jelly, light gel. Okay. And then I gave you the standard Winsor & Newton medium glazing, blending and glazing medium. So what I'll do now is just have a quick dollop of the light gel. Okay. Oh, I'm getting them mixed up here on my palette. Yeah. So there we go. And let's see the differences. Yeah. So we'll go over that yellow that we put on earlier. So ironically, it seems like a lot thinner, doesn't it? We'll go over again. So we'll do another layer on here. Yeah. But we'll just go over it. Let's go mental, you know. Now again, you know, you can glaze on the dark, you can glaze on the light areas. There's no wrongs and rights for that regard. Yeah, there really isn't. Okay. So because it's very, very thin, it's really useful for getting in all those holes, nooks and crannies. Now, excellent. Well, it's not excellent, it's a pain, but it's good for you guys to see here. Because I wasn't concentrating, yeah, I've ripped the skin. You see it, guys, right? Now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to let you see what happens, you see? That pollutes, look, it pollutes and it destroys the glaze. So before you know it, you've got the opaque layer of white, which is within that color, that blue, right? Polluting and destroying your glaze. Okay, so it's good that happened, but it's a pain for me, but it's good for you guys. So you can see now. All you do, rescue operation in progress, right? Oh dear. Right, there's no need to panic. You know, this stuff doesn't dry that quickly. You just pull it off. You get it off, okay? And obviously, you stay away from that area of the painting because, well, for obvious reasons. But you do have to try and just get rid of all that polluted glaze, get rid, and try again. Trial and error is the name of the game, guys. All right, but it really is. You do not want opaque color, opaque anything when you're glazing. It's your biggest enemy. All right, guys. Right, let's go again. Also, be ready with your brush because if you think about it, you've gone over there. In fact, I might have done it with the wet wipe anyway. However, with you guys, if you do it with your brush, don't forget to clean your brush because the opaque color will be on your brush. Okay, luckily we didn't do that, so we don't have to clean a brush. Okay, away you go. Look, now what I'm basically going to do now is just actually what I said we don't do, but I'm actually just going to color in down here, you know, because obviously it's an area of dark, perpetual darkness, and you know, it's just not much going on in the sense of variables. So now we're just going to scrape off, pull it back, whilst though maintaining the angle of the boat, yeah? you always got to think about how your angles are and what you're painting or glazing, shall I say, right? And the angle of the glaze, the angle of when you're pulling it off matters. Don't think for a second that any, you know, you're free to just like, you know, willy-nilly scrum it off in whatever way. That's just not, it's just not going to work, and it'll look pretty crap anyway if you do that. All right, guys, you've got to be conscious of how you're pulling it off. It's just as important as how you're putting it on, okay? Now, we've pulled that back, right? Now, that's got a residual layer of yellow, which you can see there. And then there's the darkness here, which to me is sick. It looks sick. And I'm just going to pull off the little moments here, right? And then you're going to actually work it in. You know, don't be scared to use your fingers when painting. I do it a lot. So in fact, we can even apply the glaze, you know, with your fingers to get it in all these nooks. You know, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Okay. Now, I'd like to think, you know, you're sat there in your chairs and you're thinking, my God, let me get to my art shop. I am absolutely screaming now to buy some of the products I've introduced you to today. So, you know, guys, it's definitely worth a go. At the end of the day, you know, the effects that it could potentially have on your painting are enormous. They really are. It transformed my painting. You know, it made some amazing effects. All right, guys. We'll do later on in the series, you know, we'll no doubt touch back on glazing and its wondrous effects, but more of a, you know, hitting on more of, you know, the different, many other options you can do, basically. You know, and yeah, we can create some more magic. So thanks for watching. Please, I love to get comments, pure and simply because it helps me make the videos better, you know. It helps, you know, just refine what we do, improve our content, and make it better for you guys. So subscribe, like, and all that other good stuff. Thanks now. See you next time. Bye.